to step 5 in the Haven HealthOS. Dr. Colby here again, and we're going to talk about how we can use movement and the difference between movement and exercise, and how we can use these tools so that we can allow our bodies to have the proper energetic response and detoxification response that our ancestors did every day without thinking. Because in today's world, where some people describe sitting as the new smoking, the stagnation that we constantly see throughout our days because our days aren't like our ancestors, which were out hunting, gathering, farming, we're sitting way too much. We're talking about how that is impacting your health and what you can do about it. So let's dive in. So here's a quick outline that we're going to cover today. We're going to cover what's the difference between movement versus exercise. We're going to cover why you should walk and why you should walk more. We're going to cover weightlifting, or how we're going to think about exercise in a concise way so that you can get the most benefit with the least injury and most return. We're going to talk about what action steps you have to take. Okay, so let's dive in. Movement versus exercise. A lot of people use these words interchangeably, and that's not necessarily the actual language that we want to use. Movements is an essential daily activity for health, regardless of the season, mood, or lifestyle, right? This is a great book if you're curious about all of these tactics. It's called Built to Move, but this is a great quote. A combination of functional actions that keeps everything, joints, digestion, your brain, in good working order. We all move in some ways every day, yet most of us don't move enough in the ways that we need to. So movement's what you do every day. It's how you clean, it's how you cook, it's how you bend down to pick up your kids. So these are things that we didn't really have to consciously think about upwards, I would say, probably of like 60 to 70 years ago. A lot of people, they exercise and they consider that movement, which is not true, because exercise is a targeted intervention for a specific outcome. Right? You're doing something specifically to change the physiology for an outcome. What people don't understand is that exercise is a $1 trillion industry, that a lot of people don't take into account the actual benefits or the actual goal of exercise, which we'll talk about next. Okay, so what are you going to do in today's crazy world? How are we going to implement this in a strategy that you can be effective starting right now? All we're going to have you do is we're going to have you walk. We're going to have you walk more. Okay, our ancestors walked on average, again, depending on the scientific studies, this can be variable, but our ancestors walked 5 miles per day. And the reason that this is important is because the lymphatic system is the sewer system of the body. The lymphatic system has all of the fluids that is not in your blood, which is a lot more than what's in your blood. And these toxins basically get pumped back up to your heart ultimately to be then excreted to your liver for those toxins to be filtered. But what most people don't know is that the sewer system can only be pumped through muscle contraction. So if you sit for a prolonged time, it means that there's a stagnation of toxins that are happening in your lymphatic system. That's a big no-no. So what we're trying to do is not necessarily walk all at once. We're trying to move our bodies through walking consistently throughout the day. So we would rather, and I would have you, I should say, rather take 20 to 30 minute walks throughout the day to break up your day so you can move those toxins, you can move that lymph, rather than taking like one long walk in the morning. And of course, like this is all, you have to put this all into your own schedule, but the goal is that we aren't sitting for prolonged periods of time, because our ancestors sat during the workday for about the same amount of time as us in today's world. The issue becomes is that after work, they didn't sit down. They didn't go on the couch. They didn't go on their phone. They didn't go on the computer. Is that they were doing things around the house. So post-work, they weren't doing anything except for moving. Okay? So the way that we incorporate that everyday life is that we break up the day through slight movement, through walking throughout the day. This is when we talk about to incorporate intermittent movement when working long hours. Walking, stretching, playing, chores, but just walk more. That's all you have to do. Okay. Bonus, especially if you can, touch the ground or buy barefoot walking shoes or grounding shoes, or just get outside in a park, in some nature, because the energy of the sunlight, the energy of the earth will increase your energy, because that can directly impact your cell's voltage. A complex topic, just to understand, the more you can touch the earth with your bare feet and not the actual rubber on your shoes, which there's shoes that you can apply this easily, you'll get that energy, that electron pull, allow for your energy to be higher. Okay, so that's like a pro tip. The pro tip would be going for a grounding walk in the morning upon rising Upon 30-ish, maybe 45 minutes upon waking, go for a walk in the morning. Sunlight on the eyes, sunlight on the skin, feet touching the earth, moving the body to clear those toxins from the previous night. So we talked about movement. Here's just a quick picture about someone sleeping on a grounding mat and how this radically decreased their inflammatory response, which you can do this every day if you walk outside and get the right shoes. So again, exercise. We're going to move on to exercise. Exercise is a targeted workout for an outcome. Here's how exercise works. You stimulate the body. While you recover, the body creates a response, and that response allows for the outcome to take place. So let's simplify this for you in the most radical way. You exercise, you lift weights, that breaks down the fiber of the muscles. The body responds to the stimulus. As the body responds to the stimulus, then you have to recover appropriately for that response to take effect. Stimulus, response, recovery. So most people are going to either work out too much, they aren't doing stimulating enough exercise to actually drive change, meaning the stimulus isn't strong enough, or they're doing exercise that potentially can create danger long-term in terms of injury. So what I recommend, especially for everybody who's embarking on this, who's trying to get in shape, who's trying to change their health, who wants to look better, feel better, I recommend a weight resistance training because this is pro-metabolic and because the chances of injury decrease dramatically versus like a Barry's class, a HIIT class, a CrossFit class. All of those things where form is out the window. We want to avoid those things. We want to avoid injury. So doing something like a split or doing something like a weight resistance training 3 to 4 times a week would be ideal. And then you walk the other days, and then the other days you also sit in a sauna. Like that is the ultimate hack right there. Okay. I highly recommend a technique that's called slow burn, which is what I do personally. I use machines that are called ARX machines. You can look all of those up. Very intense. My exercise routine is only 20 minutes. But I break down more muscle fiber because the stimulus is applied at such an intense pace that then my response is great and you can build muscle mass, which the goal of this, right, is numerous studies indicate the more muscle mass you have long term, the higher quality of life you have later on in life. On top of that, muscle burns more calories at rest than fat. So we're talking about changing body composition, right? Which everyone in terms of health, I think also wants to look better and feel better. But we're talking about changing body composition. It's not really about losing fat. Of course, that's always the goal. It's more about changing your body composition, which in turn means you want to gain muscle mass because then you burn more calories at rest. You burn more calories when you sleep, when you work. So that's always the goal of exercise, in my opinion, if you want to look and feel your best. So what are your action steps here? Your action steps is to get to 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. Just to be hyper clear, like this number was actually made up. So I find that walking between, for each individual, 3 to 5 miles a day is a great amount of time where you can be outside, you can stimulate that lymphatic flow, and you can feel good. So find a range that works for you. This tends to be the amount that I find most people do well, can hit, can achieve. It's doable and they feel good. And then I recommend to weight train 3 to 4 times a week, depending on your goals. Okay. Again, if you don't have experience with this, you might have to find a trainer. You might have to look online and get some courses. But if you do have experience with this, what we're trying to do is slow and controlled movement patterns to isolate muscle groups, to build muscle mass so that then you can have the most muscle mass long term. In the ideal world, you would do something like an ATG split on the other days where you'd focus on isolated movements that can allow for the functional movement patterns with the actual fascia to be ideal. But that's a little bit more complex than what we'll talk about here, but just kind of something to keep in the back of your mind. If you're already into this, you already exercise a lot, we have all the resources in terms of fascia control and all of those things. Specifically for women, doing isometric contractions or static holds like Pilates can be extremely helpful, especially during and around pregnancy. So I think that's amazing. If you're already into that, like stick with that. The goal of both movement and exercise in the ideal way is to find something that you enjoy doing that can create a long-term pattern for you, that then you're doing that consistently. Because ultimately, if you aren't going to stay consistent, what's the point? So there you go. You have the difference here between movement and exercise. You have the importance because it's going to clear toxins. It's going to allow for you to have more pro-metabolic capacity, and it's going to allow for, in my experience, your brain, your clarity, and all of that to improve because you're getting outside, you're seeing the sun, you're doing all the stuff we're supposed to do every day. So if you have any questions about any of this, there's much more detail here than what we talked about, but this is at least a great first step for you to go embark on. Chat soon.